What's up, guys? Lance the Obscure Movie Guy coming to you once again with another fun-filled, fact-filled video that you probably won't care about, but we're going to do it anyways, trying to change the world one post at a time. And today I'm going to be going over the latest offering from AcroStar Films, which, if you guys have been following me, which you should, you'll have undoubtedly heard me talk about some of their previous projects before. I've gone over Disremembered, I've gone over Desperate Souls, Attack of the Corn Zombies, They Came Back from Somewhere, They Came from Somewhere. So these are all things that they have done. And we've got a lot to cover with AcroStar for the future. We've got a lot to cover with Night of the Dead Sorority Babes. So let's dive in. Let's check out Sorority Babes and see what it's all about.
Bitches, you have been handpicked to rush Gamma Rho Kappa, the most prestigious sorority around.
Failing this ritual will result in termination.
These bitches are actual witches. Fucking witches!
So Night of the Dead Sorority Babes comes from the mastermind of Steve Herman, who does, I think he's done just about all of the projects for AcroStar Films. He's always involved as the writer and or director. In this case, he was the writer and co-director of this, but it was his idea to come up with this, and he was inspired by USA's Up All Night with Rhonda Shear, which I happen to be a big fan of. I used to watch USA Up All Night as a kid, and all of the movies that coincided with that ridiculous nighttime late night show on the weekends. So that was his inspiration for this. He was co-director. The other one directing was Angel Bradford. You know, Angel made her directorial debut in the last film that they did, which was Disremembered, and did an incredible job in that film. And this one is exactly the same. It is a fantastic job between Steve Herman and Angel Bradford, and the way everything was wrapped up in this movie. So what you have with Sorority Babes is a very exclusive sorority house that you can only get into by invitation, and it is basically run by a couple of witches that use the initiation process for human sacrifice for their own personal gains and reasons. Now, while my description of the plot sounds a little basic, the movie thrives on character development throughout the course of the film. There's a lot of character development for almost every single character. They all each have their own individual story arcs that play along with the plot. And it's done very well. And again, Steve Herman always does a really good job of writing out dialogue that is not predictable. It's one of my biggest issues I have with a lot of major blockbusters and Hollywood films, is that a lot of the dialogue is extremely predictable, especially nowadays with some of the superhero movies. Actually, with almost all the superhero movies, there's always some sort of one-liner that you've heard before, or some sort of speech that goes along with something else you've heard before, and it's all very predictable. And Steve Herman does a really good job of, when he's writing these films, and these dialogues in particular, it usually comes off very sharp. Disremembered was really good for that, and again, he takes that same practice and applies it here to Sorority Babes. Another thing that I enjoyed with this film is that even though it's written very intelligently and very sharply, that it still leaves room for some good old-fashioned horror tropes that you run into in a lot of different horror movies, just for the sake of it being there. And it's actually done pretty well. A good example of this is a shower scene where the girl is showering in the dark. I don't know why she's showering in the dark, but it's one of those funny things that things like that happen in horror movies, like, why would you run upstairs when you could run downstairs? Or like the Geico commercial, why would you run in the barn full of all of the sharp tools when you could take this getaway car? But it's little tropes like that that are sprinkled throughout this film that are done purposefully enough to kind of as a nod to old-time horror flicks and stuff that Steve Herman would have seen on USA's Up All Night, but also done in a way that it's not campy. So even though this girl takes a shower in the dark, the ambient lighting actually plays very well into the scene itself and what happens to her and what she finds out. And again, something that's done very, very well and very intelligently. Another great thing that was done throughout the course of this film was the fact that it takes place at a sorority house and only at the sorority house. And this works well with a lot of horror things because good horror always tries to make it feel like the walls are closing in on you as the audience member or in on the character itself. And this plays really well as the movie progresses. You get less and less characters on screen and in the house, but the house itself feels like it's closing in on the remaining characters until obviously the ultimate pinnacle of the film, the climax of the film, and when you find out what's really going on. And that was done really well. Also, another great thing with this film is the way that Steve wrote it out. It plays well in this particular instance where you can watch this as a standalone film, but he has left it open to possible prequels or sequels, depending on which way he wanted to go. And it's not necessarily an open-ended movie where you expect there to be a sequel, but because there is so much character development, it leaves a lot of, I don't want to say questions, but it leaves a lot of avenues to explore with these characters. We'll take the two sisters, played by Ann Myrna and Lynn Lowry. These are the head witches. It leaves the option open for a prequel, The Chronicles of Sorority Babes. Why did these witches end up the way they did? Why do they hate us mortals so much? What happened to their family to make them turn on us? It leaves a lot of avenues like that. And then at the end of the film, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not, but you should watch the flick. But at the end of the film, it also leaves the options open as where are these girls going from here with everything that they just did? Is this just going to continue as this sorority house the way it is? New reign of terror, different people involved, new victims? They play a little bit to that as to what it could be moving forward, but it still leaves a lot of avenues to explore, especially with the character development, because the characters are what really made this film shine, along with the actresses that portrayed them. Each of the characters in this film was portrayed very well, but the characters in and of themselves, the characters are not what they seem. You have some characters that are not as smart as they appear to be. You have some characters that are not as dumb as they appear to be. And then you have some characters that are just flat out not what they appear to be at all. And we'll dive into that with the actresses that portrayed them, because everything was done really well as far as the acting goes. That's really where this movie shines, is with the character development and the actresses that portrayed them. So let's break that down. So kicking things off, you have the head sorority sisters, which is played by Ann Myrna and Lynn Lowry. Now, Ann's been a part of AcroStar production since the beginning and is Steve Herman's partner in crime. She's in most of the stuff that they do and often participates as a producer, executive producer, starring role, co-starring, co-writing, whatever the case may be, and she's a professional in everything that she does. Lynn Lowry is a bit of a horror icon. Now, you might remember her from other AcroStar stuff, but really she made a name for herself back in the 70s with movies like The Crazies and Shivers. And these two are the head witches, head sisters of the sorority that are tormenting these girls. I loved their chemistry on screen. They did a really good job. And it's kind of weird because I know that this is supposed to be a little bit of a horror aspect, but the chemistry between Anne and Lynn kind of gave me, especially from a witch sense, it kind of gave me a sense of the witches and sisters from Sabrina the Teenage Witch with Melissa Joan Hart. That's the type of chemistry and feeling that I got from this. And I don't think that that was supposed to be that way. And I'm not saying it's a comedic effect. It's just their chemistry is that good that I could buy them as sisters in real life. Next up, you have Mia Katz, who plays Roxy Spark, who is the go-between the head sisters and the pledges trying to get into this very exclusive sorority. She basically acts as a drill sergeant for these girls and runs a tight ship, and when they get out of line, smacks their ass with a paddle.
Here you are all equally worthless, and my orders are to weed out all non-hackers who do not pack the gear to serve in my beloved corps. Do you maggots understand that?
She did a really good job in this film and delivers her lines really sharp, really good. No hesitation from her whatsoever in anything that she has to do. So top notch on Mia Katz's part. I think I've honestly overlooked her a little bit in previous AcroStar stuff, and for that, Mia, I am sorry. I know you did a really good job in Attack of the Corn Zombies, and I think I've overlooked you in some other stuff, so I apologize because you are a really good actress. So from there, we're going to run down the rest of these actresses and characters the way that Roxy lined them up in the sorority house. Basically, Roxy lines these girls up, tells them to strip down to their skivvies, and then belittles them based on their appearance, based on their attitude, based on their degree, and we're going to run down each of those characters in order as such. Next up, you have Kelsey Livingood playing Lucy Livingood. I guess her last name was so good they decided to use it. But she plays a tough-as-nails goth chick who's always ready to throw down and beat some ass and has the mouth of a trucker.
Oh, the language on you. You blow your father with that mouth?
So once again, Kelsey, as Lucy Livingood, does a great job with her line delivery, and I did like her character story arc because even though she comes off as tough as nails, she does have a couple of scenes where she does get to play a little bit of a softer side. Always kind of one of those things where the character itself maybe puts on a facade even though it doesn't need to. So next up, you have Ashley Amber Lynn playing Victoria Vanderwall, who is getting a degree in psychology because she wants to understand the mentality of people who enjoy BDSM.
Very nice.
So once again, you've got another great actress portraying a character very well, and this is another great character story arc that I enjoyed. And she doesn't appear to be exactly what she says she is. So a little bit of a, thing there going on. And a lot of these characters all come off as something else than what they start as. Next up, you have Angel Bradford as Blair Lynn, who is a soft-spoken, shy girl who is searching for a degree in culinary arts, though has no idea how to cook.
This is the fucking best. It's fucking raw.
I really liked this character for Angel Bradford. So I've seen Angel in quite a few things now, especially with Acrostar. She did Disremembered, did a review on that, did a review on Desperate Souls. She's going to be in Return of the Corn Zombies, and she always plays a really good bitch. And I mean that in a very loving manner, because she's probably not one in real life. In fact, you always hear stories of people in Hollywood that are always like this gruff, old, grumpy. Like Martin Cove's a good example from Cobra Kai. Comes off as, John Kreese is a complete asshole, and then you hear stories about him when he's just like the sweetest guy in the world. And it's probably the same thing with Angel Bradford. She's really good at playing a bitch. She's probably not one in real life, and I really like this role because it's usually a complete role reversal from what she usually does. I will say towards the end of the film, I'm not going to say why, but she does return to those roots. Next up, we have Jessa Flux as Veronica Harper. Whoo, mama, that's my favorite. Now, I've never seen or heard of Jessa Flux before, so this was a first time for me, but I did like her character for obvious reasons, and also for the character story arc. Her character is probably the most comfortable in her skin. She's probably the most comfortable in the positions that she's in, no pun intended. And she's also the most promiscuous of the group. She's also the one character that probably didn't have any twists or turns along the way. She does have a romantic relationship with one of the other girls in the bunch. You'll have to watch in order to find out who. But I think it says a lot to Jessa Flux because she strikes me as a person that's probably comfortable in real life being in her own skin, being who she is, and that played out through the character. And I think having somebody like that in the cast probably also helped the other girls feel a little bit more comfortable throughout the course of the film. Next, we have Anna Clary playing Megan Anderson, who is the most conceited of the girls. She thinks she is the smartest, brightest, prettiest, and has the best body of the bunch.
Hey, how you doing?
And again, just like with all the other characters, I can't reiterate this enough, we have another really good character story arc where it is revealed later in the film why she is conceited the way she is and why she comes off the way that she does, and what is actually a pretty touching scene in the film. So, good job on her. Again, the characters, they are not what they appear to be. And this is just another one in the lineup that goes along with that portrayal. And finally, rounding out the lineup is Mel Heflin as Bambi.
That's a hooker's name.
And despite that being a stripper name, and that is brought up in the movie, she's probably the smartest of the bunch as she is trying to get a degree in law. However, I could not get over the fact of how much Mel Heflin looks like Amy Adams. It can't just be me, right?
They're the same picture.
Once again, though, you've got another great character and story arc where she is probably the smartest of the bunch, and probably the most posh and reserved, aside from Angel Bradford's, who's very shy and timid. But again, as the movie goes on, and especially towards the end of this film, her character does some very uncharacteristic things towards the end of this film that really act as a little bit of a surprise and plot twist. And though she wasn't in the lineup, we do get to see the very lovely Samantha Hupp as Tiffany Hudson.
Hubba hubba.
We see her briefly in the beginning of the film and at the end of the film, with a few sprinkles in between to kind of allude to where the story is going, and kind of revolves around what happened to her and where she's been. And again, with the way that this was written, as I said earlier, it leaves a lot of avenues to explore. And one of those avenues could be the character of Tiffany Hudson. As a prequel, how did she get invited to this house? What happened to her? Where's she been? Or as a sequel, what do we do with this character now that she's kind of re-emerged? So, and again, I don't want to spoil anything too much. You'll have to watch and find out how and why and all of that fun stuff. Overall, this is a really good movie. I really enjoyed watching it for various reasons, but realistically, this is Steve Herman's brainchild, and I think it's a good nod to USA Up All Night with Rhonda Shear and Gilbert Gottfried back in the day. The stuff that he kind of grew up with. But not only is it a nod to that, but it is an elevation of that, because a lot of that stuff that you would see on USA Up All Night, it's kind of silly, it's kind of campy, but he took some of that, elevated it with a really good storyline, really good character build-up, and a little bit of drama sprinkled in between. So top-notch to Steve putting it together, writing it out. Top-notch to Angel Bradford and Steve directing this. I think it says a lot for the crew when you have a movie like this where you have a group of young girls who are going to be topless and put in some weird situations on screen that probably weren't too comfortable doing in some regards. But I think it says a lot for the crew that I'm fairly confident that Angel Bradford and Steve Herman and Ann Myrna all made it as comfortable as possible behind the scenes so that they weren't uncomfortable being on screen. So that's a true testament to their professionalism, even though myself am not that professional, as we can tell. So that's a real testament to them as how they work as a group. I also think it says a lot for the actresses that are willing to put themselves on screen in some of these instances, when really, this is a crowd-funded project, it's low budget, and really you're doing this for the actual art of filmmaking and not for a payday. I think it's easy to put yourself in some of these situations if you're getting paid for it. It's another thing to put yourself out there the way that they did throughout the course of this film when you're doing it for the sake of the story and for the sake of the art. And I also think that says a lot with the relationship that these actresses have with people like Angel Bradford, Ann Myrna, and Steve Herman. So top-notch to them on that as well. Now, it's been a big year for AcroStar Films as a production company. This year, they finally became a registered LLC production company, which was big news. They also got worldwide distribution through Bayview Entertainment, which is huge news, where you're going to be able to find a lot of this stuff on a lot of different streaming platforms. In the past, you've been able to catch some of this stuff on Tubi. You can catch just about everything they've got on their YouTube channel. You've been able to see some of it on Amazon Prime. So having worldwide distribution through Bayview Entertainment is a huge deal. And you can actually go over to Bayview Entertainment's YouTube channel, subscribe and comment to theirs, and you can actually catch the full trailer for Night of the Dead Sorority Babes. And if you follow AcroStar on Facebook, or if you follow their YouTube channel, you'll be familiar with Splintered Love. Season 1 was about 4 episodes. It's a bit of a anthology, I guess, type series. Each episode is different than the last. There's no wraparound story. They're not in conjunction with one another, but each episode is a short story of horror and romance, and they're set to start filming season 2 in January. Perfect Soul, which is going to be filmed next year, they're set to do proof of concept footage in March, and then the actual movie itself will be filmed in June and September. And Return of the Corn Zombies is on track to be released in May of 2025. So a lot of things coming out of AcroStar in 2025. And as we head into 2026, there'll be a second season of Blood Sisters. I've briefly talked about that in the past on some of the videos. I haven't actually watched any of the episodes yet myself. There is 9 episodes of the first seasons of Blood Sisters. They are set to try and do season 2 in 2026. So lots of good things coming from AcroStar. I want to give them a huge shout out because I've I don't want to say I've been with them from the beginning, but they're one of the first things, one of the first production companies that I really kind of started stepping away from, my normal videos and started focusing more on the low budget independent stuff. And, they had me do They Came From Somewhere, Desperate Souls, Disremembered, now this, and I'll be doing more stuff with them in the future. I'm also an assistant producer on Attack of the Corn Zombies, and I will be an assistant producer on Perfect Soul as well. So huge shout out to them for giving me the opportunity to see this before it comes out. Be sure to check them out online. You can like and follow them on YouTube, Facebook. Again, go over to Bayview Entertainment, like and subscribe to that YouTube channel, and keep up on everything that they're coming out with. That's not just AcroStar, but all of their other great movies that they've got coming out. Like, subscribe, and comment to my YouTube channel. I hope I did you guys some justice in this one. Be sure to share the video, and I'll see everybody in the next one.